By the third hearing, everyone in the courtroom had stopped pretending this was really about paperwork. My father called it an inheritance dispute. My aunt called it a misunderstanding that went too far. The reporters outside called it a family scandal because they needed simpler words for complicated damage. But sitting there beside my attorney, listening to my father describe me as if I were a forged signature someone had accidentally raised into adulthood, I understood what it actually was. He wanted the court to confirm what he had believed for years, that I did not belong. She's an impostor, he said loudly enough that even the bailiff looked up. Everything she has came from deception. His voice had aged badly. It used to fill rooms when I was a child. By then it mostly sounded strained, like anger had become maintenance work. I kept my eyes on the table, not because I was ashamed, because if I looked at him too long, I might remember smaller things instead of larger truths. Him checking my birth certificate twice when I was 13, the way family photos somehow happened when I was away at competitions, the pauses after introductions. This is my daughter, a beat too long before daughter. My attorney, Daniel Reeves, rested both hands calmly on the table while my father continued. No hospital records line up properly. Her schooling changed names twice. There are sealed files nobody can access. And now suddenly she appears in the will with equal standing. Daniel said nothing. That worried me more than if he had argued. Across the room, the judge adjusted his glasses and asked my father to remain focused on verifiable claims. I am focused, my father snapped. Ask her who she really is. For a moment, I almost answered, not with the truth. Just something emotional, something human and messy. I wanted, absurdly, to ask why he never once asked me that question in private. Instead, I stayed silent. Daniel had warned me weeks earlier. If this escalates, he'd said carefully, there are procedures that may activate automatically. Once they do, none of us control the pace anymore. I thought he was exaggerating. Then my father's subpoenaed sealed records connected to my early identity documentation. That was apparently enough. The hearing dragged through another hour of accusations. My father grew more confident with every minute that passed without resistance. Confidence had always been contagious around him. Family members absorbed it to survive. Even my brother avoided looking at me. I don't think he hated me. I think he feared discovering he'd built his entire understanding of our family around a version that was incomplete. Then Daniel finally stood, not dramatically, almost reluctantly. Your Honor, he said, before further testimony proceeds, I've been instructed to submit this directly to the court. He handed over a thick sealed envelope, no logo visible from where I sat, but I recognized the paper immediately, Heavy stock. Government issue. A cold feeling spread through my stomach. The judge frowned slightly as he opened it. At first, nothing changed. He scanned the first page with mild irritation, probably expecting another procedural interruption. Then his expression stopped moving altogether. He reread a section, looked at me, looked back down. The courtroom had become so quiet I could hear someone shifting papers near the back wall. The judge slowly removed his glasses and said very clearly, all rise. Every chair scraped backward at once. Even my father stood automatically, confused by his own reflexes. Two men entered through the side door near the clerk's station, dark suits, no visible urgency, which somehow made it worse. One approached the bench quietly, the other remained near the entrance. Nobody explained anything for nearly 30 seconds. That silence changed the room more than shouting ever could. My father looked from the judge to Daniel to me. Wait, he said. What is this? The judge's voice had lost all impatience. Mr. Mercer, this proceeding is now subject to federal review. You are instructed to stop speaking about the defendant's identity in open court effective immediately. Defendant, not daughter, not claimant. Just a protected legal position. My father laughed once, uncertainly. This is absurd. Nobody answered him. The judge glanced toward me. And for the first time that entire year, I saw something other than skepticism in his face. Recognition, not personal recognition, institutional recognition. The kind people give things they understand are larger than themselves. My father's face began losing color slowly, like blood retreating from somewhere deeper than panic. Daniel placed one hand lightly on my arm. You don't need to answer questions today, he said quietly. I barely heard him because my father was staring at me now with a completely different expression, not anger, disorientation. As if he had suddenly realized there had been entire sections of my life he never had access to. Which was true. The sealed records he fought so hard to expose existed because my biological mother had worked under federal protection agreements overseas before she died. Afterward, certain details about me remained restricted under continuation protocols tied to her assignments, not because I was important, because systems are built to continue once activated. My father had known pieces of it years ago, enough to stay away from certain questions. But after the inheritance dispute began, pride overtook caution. He convinced himself secrecy meant fraud. The hearing ended within minutes after that. No dramatic speech, no public humiliation, just procedure. The inheritance challenge was suspended pending review by agencies my father could neither intimidate nor outspend. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded the stairs, shouting questions nobody answered. Federal personnel escorted me through a side exit into a gray sedan waiting near the curb. Daniel slid into the seat beside me after a moment. "You okay?" I looked out the window as courthouse doors opened in the distance. My father emerged slowly, surrounded by relatives who suddenly seemed unsure where to stand around him. For years, I had imagined some version of vindication. I thought if the truth ever surfaced, it would feel clean. Instead, it felt expensive. Daniel spoke carefully. "There are options available now. Additional protection if you want it." I knew what he meant: new address monitoring, restricted disclosures, distance, the same life I had already spent years trying to outgrow. I closed my eyes briefly. Across the street, my father stood completely still while cameras flashed around him. He looked old for the first time in my life, not defeated, just confronted by the possibility that he had spent years trying to erase someone he never actually understood. "Not today," I told Daniel quietly. Because despite everything, some small part of me still wasn't ready to disappear from my own family completely.